Hi there, I'm Mike. What I have for you today is Star Wars The Black Series. Nah, not that one. Hi there, I'm Mike, and what I have for you today is Star Wars The Black Series Luke Skywalker Bespin. Now, this figure was initially released back in 2014 as part of Phase 1. It was actually number 11 in the line, and the second Luke Skywalker figure ever released. 6 years later, Hasbro decided to re-release it as part of the 40th anniversary line of Empire Strikes Back, with a new card style and an all-new head. Other than that, everything else is supposedly the same. So we're gonna take a look at that. And plus, since I never reviewed the original figure, I figured I'd go ahead and give it an actual review as well. So, killing two birds with one stone, let's go ahead and just kind of check this out. There is a bio of sorts on the back of this box here, so I'm gonna go ahead and read that. Luke battles Darth Vader on a narrow platform in Cloud City and rejects Vader's urging to turn to the dark side and rule the galaxy with him. And then there's always a quote on the back of these early boxes. It says, "You'll find I'm full of surprises." So here we have him out of the box, and like I said, this is an updated version of the 2014 figure. It actually came out at the very beginning of 2014 as part of the third wave of Star Wars Black Series figures ever. This right here is essentially Luke Skywalker as he appeared at the climax of The Empire Strikes Back. From the moment he left Dagobah to the moment he fell off of the antenna on Cloud City, this is essentially kind of what he looked like, more or less. He did get a little bit more bloodied along the way, as well as losing a bit of himself. I actually never quite understood where he got this outfit from. I mean, the boots here, now that I look at them, are clearly just his Hoth boots, but dirtied up because, you know, he spent however long he spent on Dagobah. They never actually say how long he spent training with Yoda on Dagobah. Could have been a week, could have been a couple weeks, couple months, nobody knows. But enough for his boots to go really dirty. But I don't know if he had this outfit hanging out with him on his X-Wing, or he stopped by on the way to Bespin to pick up an outfit from somewhere. He just really wanted a beige leisure suit, I guess. But jokes aside, this is actually a pretty cool way to show how far Hasbro's come in the last 6 years in terms of face sculpt. So again, this is the new one here in my hand. This one right here is the old one. From the neck down, they are largely the exact same. But unlike the archive lines where they just kind of update the paint, this has an entirely new head sculpt. The original head sculpt is fine, especially for its time. I don't think it was ever awful, although a lot of people complained about it. It is all one piece, and the painting on it isn't great, especially by today's standards, but it was not bad for back in 2014 with what we were getting at the time. But fast forward 6 years, we have an incredibly new likeness of Luke Skywalker. Mark Hamill, I feel like, is one of those people that's really hard to capture in the 3D realm. A lot of bad sculpts out there that just don't quite get Mark Hamill. This one I feel like comes pretty close. The hair and the face are two different pieces, and with the digital face printing, it really goes to show how lifelike they can get the eyes, the skin tone. All of that just looks very natural, like he's an actual person. Another thing that I didn't notice until getting this new one is the head sculpt for the original figure is actually too small. He looks like a KO after looking at this one, which looks a lot more proportional. In terms of accessories, both figures come with the exact same accessories, but they are different subtly. First, we have the lightsaber. The lightsaber hilt is molded in, I don't know, I have no idea what color plastic, because the whole thing's painted silver and black and gold. They are using different materials though. The newer one is using a much sturdier material, whereas the original one is using a softer rubber. Whenever I put the original one in the hands, it always kind of bends a little bit, especially if I'm doing a two-handed pose. Whereas this one definitely has a lot more sturdiness to it. It doesn't have that give, it doesn't have that bend. Also, the lightsaber blade on the new one does not fit in the lightsaber of the old one, and vice versa. The lightsaber itself fits on the hook on his belt, so if you want to store it casually, he can. It also fits in either hand, kind of fits in both hands a little bit, but some extra articulation would have made it a better option for doing that. The other accessory it comes with is the DL-44 blaster. This is a standard Luke Skywalker Han Solo blaster from The Empire Strikes Back. Luke Skywalker uses it especially when he's wandering around Cloud City, trying not to get caught while he's looking for his friends. His hand is molded with a trigger finger, so you can put it securely in his hand without worrying about it falling out. It also fits really well in the blaster. The holster on the old one, I have a hard time fitting the muzzle through. It also doesn't peg in too well. The new one, it pegs in fine, and the holster fits in fine. I think the opening on the bottom's a little bit bigger. I do wish he came with a couple of extra things here. I always say things like alternate hands and blast effects, but in this case, he's actually missing a big thing here. He should have an easily removable hand, and maybe even that little thing to go over his stump that he uses at the end of the movie in The Falcon when, you know, they rescue him. Yes, you could probably get his hand out if you heat up the plastic and pull it out. You can do that with any of the figures if you're customizing them. But I really do think that they should have made it so his hand can come off very easily to simulate the thing that happens in the movie that is the most iconic thing to pretty much happen in Star Wars. That whole exchange between Luke Skywalker losing his hand and Darth Vader telling him he's his father, I think that permeates throughout history so well that you can go back in time into the 40s and 50s and still get that reference being made, because that's how iconic it is. So it seems like a really weird missed opportunity that his hand isn't removable. I mean, it's like a no-brainer, right? But maybe they didn't because it would hinder the articulation, and sometimes Hasbro does err on the side of better sculpt than hindering articulation. I don't know. Hasbro's weird with articulation, but speaking of which, let's go ahead and take a look at that. His head moves all the way around. It moves forward this far, back that far. His arm moves out that far. It can move all the way around. He has a 90-degree bend at the elbow, a slightly greater than 90-degree bend at this one, a swivel at the elbow, and then a swivel at the wrist, as well as a hinge. Both wrists hinge this way. He has a torso joint that allows for movement side to side. It moves forward this far, back this far. His leg moves forward that far, back not very far. He has an upper thigh swivel, a double jointed knee, a hinge, and a rocker, with this being Luke's widest stance with both his feet flat on the ground. So again, being mostly a figure from 2014, he has 2014 standard articulation. He's missing a lot of newer points that they've started doing in the Black Series, like the double jointed neck or the butterfly shoulders. He actually would have been perfect to have butterfly shoulders. His elbows are a little limited, and this one bends a little bit more than this one, but other than that, he moves pretty well. It's especially nice that his leg isn't really hindered by his belt, because his belt, while it does wrap around his waist and his leg, it's not glued down, which is fantastic. But we're in 2020, and this is technically a new release for 2020, especially with the new head. So again, it would have been nice if we'd gotten a little bit of more tweaks than just a new head, but it's nice that it's not the sculpt that really hinders the articulation at this point. What they've been doing now is having this ring around the leg sculpted onto the leg and having the holster glued to the leg, which is just a weird choice. This is the way you should do it. So this is actually better than they've been doing more recently. But the belt itself has some pretty good sculpt as well. It's made out of a soft rubber. It's pretty much entirely brown. It has some silver paint here and there on the rivets and the snaps and the buckle and things like that. It's got pouches and little compartments kind of molded on. It looks pretty good. The rest of the figure though is pretty boring. Another difference that I have on mine between the two figures is that the new one feels a lot less dirty than the old one. Now, it could just be that the old one has been sitting on my shelf for 6 years and it's just accumulated dust in the nooks and crannies, but I don't think so. I think there's actually more of a paint wash on that, whereas there's less of one on here, which just makes them look less grimy. And I do feel like in this case, the original one does look a little bit better, but the sculpting on the clothes is nice. He's got all his pockets, he's got his wrinkles, he's got wrinkles on his butt. It's weird when you think about that. At some point, someone's job was to sculpt wrinkles on the butt of Luke Skywalker. But like I said, the two sculpts between the two figures are largely the same, and ultimately, it's kind of boring. I mean, it's iconic. This is Luke Skywalker in the scene where he's most known for being in a scene, I am your father, hand cut off. It really doesn't get much more iconic than that. So what he's wearing is iconic, but when you really look at it, it's a beige leisure suit. It's just not interesting. In the end though, I'm very glad that Hasbro included this in their Empire Strikes Back line. It was a figure that did need an update, and he was a contender for the archive line to get a better head. So I'm glad they did that with the 40th anniversary. Unlike some of the other figures in this Wave 1, he hasn't been released in 6 years. The other figures have actually been re-released within the last year or two, so they're much more recent than this one. So it's nice that Hasbro's bringing this back for the people that didn't collect the Black Series back in 2014 and didn't want to pay 60 or 70 bucks in those aftermarket prices. I mean, the only reason you might want the older one is if you're an inbox collector and you just want to fill that hole in your collection so you can have that orange box going on there. But if you're an out-of-box collector, this is definitely the superior sculpt. And while I have both, one of them is going back into his box and going back into a trunk in my garage, where I will keep him for posterity's sake, but he will not be displayed in my collection. This one will, because he looks a lot better. You can pick this up right now pretty much anywhere. I got mine on Amazon, but a lot of places online have them in stock. They're showing up at Walmart and Target. I actually found Wave 1 at Walmart the other day when I went on a toilet paper run. Although Bespin Luke was the only figure missing from the wave. So keep in mind, him being the figure that hasn't been out the longest and probably the most wanted one from all of those in Wave 1, he'll probably be the hard one to get. All the other figures, like I said, have been re-released more recently, so they're probably not as sought after as Luke Skywalker here. He's a pretty good figure still, despite his age, but the head sculpt really does drag him down a lot. The updated figure here is actually gonna get a little bit better score, mostly because he's a little bit easier to find, and that new head sculpt is like a night and day difference. It's just so much better side by side. The old one definitely looks like a KO to me now, and it's really hard for me to look at it. So if you wanna bolster your Rebel collection, or your Empire Strikes Back shelf, or you want Luke in a leisure suit where he's gonna go have dinner with his dad and get into a fight about politics, I definitely think you should pick this one up. It's gonna make a great addition to your collection. And with that is my Luke Skywalker Bespin review. Let me know down in the downstairs area. Do you have this? Are you gonna get this? I love to read and respond to all of those. I'd also like to take a moment to thank these people here for supporting me on Patreon at a Black Series level or higher. Thanks a lot, guys. It does mean a lot to me that you do that. If Patreon is not your thing, there's a bunch of different ways down in the downstairs area to help me out that are free, up to and including liking, sharing, subscribing, hitting the bell for more notifications, and that's it. With that, thank you for watching. Thank you for getting this far, and I'll see you later. Bye.